Hello, everyone. This is Tina Salinas from We Are the Voice for the Silenced and Afflicted. We have a guest today. Her name is Jackie, and she has one little child in foster care, and she would like to discuss her family court and DCF corruption case. Hi, Jackie. Thank you so much for being part of the show.
Hi, and thank you.
Can you hear? Okay, there you go. All right, Jackie, we're going to let you tell your story. There might be a few questions that I ask, and then at the end, if you want, you are more than welcome to give some advice maybe to some parents or some resources that you found helpful for yourself. So go ahead, and thank you so much for being part of the show again.
Once again, thank you. So, a little bit about me is before this case started in 2017, I'm a recovering addict from opioid abuse, and I'm going to admit that and put that out there. But that's not why this case started, actually. Um, I was with my daughter's father for 4 years before this case started, and in 2017, he did decide to get clean. We had a rocky relationship or whatnot. My daughter was 2.5 at the time, and we lived in upstate New York. So he went to rehab. I lived with his family because I didn't want to be alone raising my child. And he just started acting like really shady and whatnot. So I go down south where my family is, and I'm here now actually. Um, so I just picked up and left, and went to South Carolina. And mind you, I was kind of weary about it because I didn't want to go to court, for kidnapping my daughter, custodial kidnapping. So I actually went picked him up from rehab, went down to New York City, 4 hour drive, and I got a phone call from my in-laws stating, we need you back here. Why did you leave? They were just acting really strange. So they just kept calling me off the chain. So come to find out, they were trying to do an intervention with CPS, and they had CPS at the house. So I was staying in New York City for a little bit because I didn't have any more money to even after rehab, and he wound up robbing me. So I know that's awful to say, but so I'm waiting for my parents to come to New York to come pick me up, staying with a friend that's actually a relative of his. And she was housing me. I was paying for my stay, my food, everything like that. Get a phone call from CPS. I mean, actually, we're gonna call CPS. I was like, go ahead, I'm clean. I have nothing to hide. So they call CPS. They come
Can I
maybe
ask real
about two
quick,
days after.
was it your parents that actually called CPS? Is that what you're saying?
No, it was my daughter's father,
Oh, okay.
his side. So
Even
and
worse.
this is not the first time they called CPS. The other, yeah, I know, right? So the last time they called CPS, twice. So and it wasn't founded the last time because they showed that I wasn't on drugs. So and in the midst of all this, before I started, you know, packing up and leaving, before that I was in recovery. I mean, in rehab, and I went to mental health clinics and everything like that. I chose to get clean, not because CPS told me to. So, so let me fast forward. They got the phone call from CPS. They met me at my and she goes, the person I was staying with had a CPS case, and she already know the deal. So they came. They said we have a report that the father's still abusing drugs, and that you're letting him around. My child. It's supervised. So, and I'm not. I'll be more than happy to take a drug test. So I didn't know
Was this
I
court
had no
ordered?
like legal ground of not to let them in. So
Sorry,
let them upstairs, showed
sorry.
them where
Was
she was sleeping, so there's adequate food. The person I was staying with, they checked out or whatever because I don't know. I never even they never. Oh, sorry.
you're okay? I
Yes, they
think we're just
never
having a little lag.
they
That's
never
all.
showed me any paperwork or anything. Just their badges. That was it. And so they said, you know what? Oh, sorry about that. So yeah, so they came in and they said we don't see any grounds to have this see that she's well taken care of. She's potty trained. She's everything. You're smart. She's smart. You don't look like you're on drugs, anything like that. So they said by law, supposedly the case has to be open for 60 days minimum. I don't know how true that is. But for the next, this started October 17th. So the next 6 days, I went and took drug tests. Remind you, they had me down as a habitual drug user. So I couldn't, they just kept interfering with me getting a drug test. They either would tell me too late to get to the place, or they were just coming up with a whole bunch of things to like interfere with me getting down to that place. So I finally do, and like I'm reading the reports 4 years later after getting my transcripts and everything, after I've asked my lawyers to give them to me, saying that the mother's clean, but you know what, she refused to take the drug test. So those 3 days that she didn't take the drug test, she probably got this, got everything out of her system. If I'm a habitual user, it wouldn't be out of my system in 3 days. So they're saying, you know what, she's doing good, but you know what, we're gonna make up a, something so just out of the extreme, to whatever. So I'm sorry, I'm choking up a little bit because like how they took
You're
her.
fine. Take your time.
Um, so they I had a safety conference. I had a safety conference, and I signed off to doing all the parenting classes and everything like that. And they want me to get an order of protection against the father because he was still using, and the 40 reported calls say that he was domestically abusive. And I agreed. I was like, if that means the case, of keeping my in the report, it says I was being compliant since day one. So they escorted me to the courthouse, Queens Family Court, and they escorted me. I sat there for 6 to 8 hours waiting to them for waiting for them to call me, to get my order of protection signed by the judge, and to go in front of her. Sat there. Time has passed. It was like maybe about 10 o'clock in the morning after the safety conference. Time's passed. No one's calling me even after lunch. So I asked the guy that was in charge of telling who's up and everything like that and who has to come in, anything about the case, like what's going on. He's like, you're not on the calendar for today. I'm like, what do you mean I'm not on the calendar? They escorted me here and said the order of protection has to be signed. So they said, you know what, it's by the time I got up and asked him like a second time, it was like maybe about 3:30. Family court closes not too much after that. So I was like, you know what? Screw this. Going home. That's their fault. They didn't want to sit there and get everything organized and things that day and go home. And mind you, before I go home, I have someone follow me in a car all day long. White car. I thought I was paranoid because of the CPS thing going on. So
Who was it?
after that, I get a phone call at 10 o'clock at night saying, "Where were you?" I'm like, "What do you mean? Where was I?" I'm like, "Who is this?" First of all, it was the CPS worker, the one that was investigating it, the one I found out that knows my sister-in-law.
So they were following you all day.
So she's like, I was like, listen,
My
You
goodness.
escorted me. You personally escorted me, and I sat there. I'm not gonna sit there. So I said I wasn't gonna sit there all day with a toddler in family court waiting. You can imagine how that is. That would be if you haven't. Um, so I was like running out of snacks, diapers, everything. So I was like, I went home. And then she's like, you know what? Don't let it happen again. Come back tomorrow. So she's like, be here at 9 o'clock. So I go there at 9 o'clock, and the same places, the same office I usually go to. My daughter's with me. They said the night before to bring my daughter, and I bring her. She was a little, rambunctious that day, and um, they said, you know what, we'll have her come in the back, eat some pizza, talk to, and get that order protection. So they bring her back to the office, and they close the door, and they tell me, I'm sorry, ma'am, we just emergency removed your child. So they took her from me. I can't even tell you, Tina, what else happened that day.
Is the reason that
I
they took her was that because
The only thing I remember was
we're
seeing
getting a
a
lot of
sign
breakage?
on the wall.
The reason they took her, is it because of them stating that you did not obtain the order of protection, although you
So
were there in
the
court
reason why
seeking
they
it?
took her,
I'm sorry, honey, you're breaking up a lot, so I'm trying to just wait a little bit for you to respond.
no, reading in all my transcripts, the reason why they took her is because they didn't trust me enough and pretty much predicted negligence, and they didn't trust me enough.
Are you there, honey? You're breaking up a lot.
Hello,
Can you hear me?
can you hear me now?
I think we have like a delay in the internet. I think that's what's going on.
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you. I just think we're having a big delay in the internet. I heard you
All
say
right.
some. I heard you say something about the
I'm
train.
sorry. Yeah. Okay. So the reason why they took her, they said that they couldn't trust me enough to keep her away from the father and to do my services and whatnot. They didn't take her because, I was starting to get clean. They didn't take her because I failed to do anything. So yeah, that's about it. So with the investigation part, so we go to court that day. Was she, the lawyer that I was appointed was like, oh no, not the lawyer. I'm sorry, the CPS worker that just took my daughter gives me a sheet of computer paper and was like, here, write down a list of references or resources that your daughter can go to. Not on anything legal, on a computer paper. No pen, no nothing. Like, so I do that. I put my grandmother as first reference. She's in South Carolina. My daughter has lived with her before. She's an amazing, grandmother and mother and, just an amazing woman. And I put my uncle and my aunt down. Then I get down, I put my mother-in-law, which I didn't want to, but I just want to get my daughter out of the system. And then the CPS worker, the one I told you, mind you, knows my sister-in-law, says, well, wouldn't you? Oh, she's the one who called CPS. Why would I even put her there? And I was like, she does not like her at all, my daughter. I don't think. So because my mother-in-law would always show my daughter attention, and a lot of a lot of her kids didn't even like that. So that's neither here or there. But so I put her down as like the fourth one. So instead of going down the list, the judge said, we're going to put her down with number four, and she's a teacher, by the way. So we're going to put her with number four since she's in New York. I'm like, well, my uncle and my aunt are in New York. So, um, so they did that, and we just went back and forth to court. Um, so when they took her, I just lost it. I relapsed. I'm not gonna lie, I did relapse, and I was homeless, living in abandoned buildings. I lost my sense of purpose, and I was like, "Screw this! I gotta go home. Gotta go to my mother." So I went to South Carolina in January after my daughter's birthday. I couldn't let my daughter see me like this. That's one of the things in the contract or whatever you want to call the safety plan. If you're getting high, or if you feel that you're not clean, you're not supposed to be seeing your daughter, and they use that against me. I said, well, I'm doing her what you asked me to. I don't want her to see me off, like just off, you know. My daughter even said to me one time when I started getting better that she goes to the foster parents and says, "Oh, I can tell my mom's doing okay." And this is a 3-year-old at the time. And once time passed, and she goes, "Well, how do you know your mom's doing okay?" Well, we can see it in her eyes. So, my daughter's really smart. So I go to, let me backtrack a little bit. I go to South Carolina in January 2018. I'm trying to start my services, by, going to mental health facility, medicated assistant treatment programs, everything like that. Um, I just had enough. I was like, I'm not seeing my daughter, and they're not giving me my visits, on Zoom. And if they are, they're only a couple of minutes because she was only 3, barely 3. So what is a 3-year-old going to do on Zoom? So I go back to New York. I know this guy I was talking to before that. I wound up living with him. He was kind of strange and abusive. And I just did it just so I had a place to stay because I didn't want to be homeless while seeing my daughter. So, come to find out, he was very abusive. And while I was trying to get my services and whatnot, I was just getting the crap beat out of me and everything. And pretty much went back and forth. So now I'm in New York. My grandmother is filing a petition. My grandmother put her petition in, I think, March of 2018. And she did her foster care license and everything like that. It gets approved, and ICPC as well. That's required. Um, but they're still not acknowledging it. They're just giving her the runaround. She was supposed to get my daughter as for a visit, and that that was in June, and they're saying, well, they approved it. The guardian ad litem approved it too, after a shit show. Excuse my language. But then we go back to court one day, and the next time, and they're like, you know what, we're not gonna have her go to South Carolina because she don't want to get on a plane. The 3-year-old. So more, to the rest of the story, my story is just pretty much
Was
going
this a
back and
visit
forth to
for you?
court for 4 years. And I'm still on supervised visitation after I've done all my services and whatnot. They asked me to. What was a visit?
Yeah, so we're having like a minute delay. That's what I'm
I didn't.
noticing.
We didn't
I
even
was
get
just
that. We didn't even get her to go to South Carolina. That was supposed to be a visit, but I would too. Any child would. Um, like
so I'm going to ask a few questions real quick because it's a little difficult to try to interject just because of the delay that we
can
have.
you hear me?
And then maybe you can just kind of respond, just give it a little bit and then respond afterwards. So, yeah, I was just asking when you were stating that you wanted your daughter to go on the plane and she didn't want to go because of her age or, safety reasons. Was that a unsupervised visitation that was supposed to be established amongst the both of you guys? And as far as your grandmother is concerned, um, has there been any visitation stipulated amongst either them or the rest of your family to continue a relationship with your daughter?
No, not at all. Even after that one time that they were going to approve of that visitation was never talked or discussed again. Was in South Carolina, so they never got visitation then. Not even the rest of my family. And I remind you, um, I've been getting supervised visitations at the facility, and I've been getting supervised visitations at the facility since October 2017. Excuse my son, I'm sorry. So yeah, they we're 4 years later in October, and I'm still getting supervised. I asked them recently, what can we do? If you were going to approve, the visitation in 2018 for my grandmother to get overnights, why can't I get overnights? And they have no answer for me. They just said, take us to court, file a motion, do whatever you got to do. Pretty much, and I have to file a motion right now, which I have, to put in just to get an extra 15 minutes a week. And I'm supposed to get about an hour to 2 hours.
So
My
now
daughter's father had passed away in January.
this is 2017 this started and it is 2021 right now, and if I'm hearing you correctly, you are still having to do supervised visitations, which is mind blowing. Um, I guess within that statement, I'm kind of wondering, have you fully completed any of their mandatory programs or what have you that they had suggested for you to obtain any unsupervised visitations? Or you have, and they're just being very difficult with you, which is causing you to motion a petition to modify your visitations.
So I completed my services and everything at least 3 times. I've done parenting. I have 2 parenting certificates. I complete my mental health therapy for the 3rd time on October. I'm sorry, we're in August. August 23rd. I get my other certificate for that. I have I have my recommendations from all my case planners that I've had over the last 4 years. I have done everything in completion for 3 times in a row, and they're just being difficult with me. So, as far as my first lawyer that I had assigned to this case, I signed, over HIPAA release forms, and they don't have even a file for me stating that I have been doing services pretty much, even though I've been inconsistent sometimes, considering the circumstances. They don't have anything on file that I've done anything since October 2017.
So now, do you
So
have your
yeah,
certificates yourself personally, along with, do you have letters of the completion from your counselors? Just wondering for a paper trail for yourself, um, because I know you just stated that they're stating that they don't have any information um, suggesting that you've done anything whatsoever to obtain your child, either unsupervised or even rights back to your child, which could prolong the situation. Not only prolong the situation, it can lead into a situation, and God forbid this happens, but it could lead into a situation to where they might suggest adoption, because it has been many years since she has been taken, unfortunately. Um, I'm
So, I do have a paper trail, and my grandmother made, she has extremely like detailed paper trail because she knows that, in the beginning I wasn't all there. And, so I thank God, the grace of God, she did that. But I did pick up the slack once I came back down here. When, some time has went by, but I do have a paper trail, my certificates and everything. I even have, if I don't have a trail of some things, my counselors actually have, because they know I wasn't stable, as far as living situation. So they do have that on file. Um, but we are in the TPR phase. The last permanency hearing that we had. Okay, so here we are, 3 years, 3 years after, and after my daughter's father died in January, um, his family just came out of the woodworks out of nowhere and filed for a motion to intervene. And they filed it because just a random uncle, never met him before, was saying, we want Lexi, we want to, we want to take her. So the judge acknowledged it for a second. Mind you, the lawyer that's representing the person, the uncle or the cousin, I don't know who it is because I don't know him, that is the judge's lawyer that represented her in her divorce hearing with her husband. So I told my lawyer that's a conflict of interest. So
Yep, I was just gonna say that. Definitely.
so he was, I was supposed to have my TPR trial in April, and since this guy came out of like left field, out of nowhere, never even saw my daughter for all these years, never, and I told the judge that she didn't even want to hear it at all. And I even told the lawyer, like, what about this guy that's representing him? Like, did you hear what I just heard? Like, and we're communicating, we're doing this through Zoom and on the phone, and I'm texting at the same time. Like, she even agreed with me, but then she's going to say she never said that. So the day that he took, they swapped out the days. So in April of this year, they were supposed to, like I said, the TPR trial was supposed to be then. So they gave him my TPR trial date as him with his motion. So, um, like he put that motion to intervene and everything like that, and it's just prolonging my case even more because now, and my lawyer didn't even tell me that was a permanency hearing. That they're just gonna tell, he's just gonna, put his motion, and they're gonna, entertain it during the permanency hearing. So going back to all the stuff that I've done and everything like that, I could have had another chance to show, here's all my stuff. This is what I did. I want to intervene in this situation, and I think she should be, here with me. My lawyer does not prepare me for anything. I understand I have my due diligence that I have to do, but they don't help me. She's went to court after that, like, mediation after that, time, that permanency hearing since April. And she's like, you know what? They came to the conclusion that if you don't give up your rights, we're going to take them. I was like, you're my lawyer. Why are you not fighting for me? So here we are, present date. Um, I just wrote a letter to my lawyer telling her, asking her to remove herself from my case. Um, it sucks because it's going towards the end, and I am like, I don't even know right now. Like, I need a. I'm looking at pro bono services and whatnot. Um, I need to put, like we were talking before, I need to put out a petition out there. I'm just trying to expose the hell out of this case. Um, this judge listened and talked to me once in 4 years almost,
So
and that was in June
the good thing
of
with the
this year.
situation of you asking your lawyer to basically step down is that they're not going to be able to listen to your case until you obtain another lawyer, which would give you a little time, hopefully, to find a suitable enough lawyer that would represent you and your child properly, because ultimately that's what your goal is. Um, it's sad when you hopefully ask to seek for a representative to stand by yourself and your child, and you have to, sit back without doing anything or saying too much to represent yourself or your child in court, and you have to depend on these people to, it's your kid's life, it's your life, you have to depend on these people to actually voice what you're trying to say in a respectful manner and in a legal manner at the same time. So, I mean, honestly, I always say to any parent, if you feel that your lawyer isn't doing just by you, you have a right, and we do. We have rights to question them. We have rights to tell them to step down. You also have a right to, which I found out recently, you can contact the Bar Association yourself, and you can request, especially if you are a domestic violence victim, or your child is dealt with child abuse, you're allowed to request to speak to somebody that will represent you, that is fully educated in those fields. So then they could feel maybe a little bit more compassion and maybe understand your situation a little bit better. It just kind of, I guess, depends on the monster that is willing to take on the beast. And it is very unfortunate, but hopefully right now you have a little bit of time that hopefully you can obtain a good lawyer, and maybe it will work out in your best interests. In the meantime, I would suggest that you definitely put in a grievance and a complaint in against Child Protective Services, just for the inadequacy of your whole case. And this has gone on for quite some time right now. I mean, I don't see if you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing, what the holdup is. Again, I'm not them, nor am I a lawyer or a judge. But there's a lot of discrepancies, of course, within your case, and I think so far you've done doing pretty good is standing your ground.
Thank you. I appreciate that information, that you're telling me. My, do you know, like, okay, I sent her that letter.
You're breaking up pretty bad. The only thing I heard was I sent her that letter.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Okay, so I appreciate the information that you sent me. I mean, and just told me right now. So how do I officially? Do you know how I officially remove her from my case? Besides that letter, it has to be more to it than giving a letter to her saying, "Hey, you need to keep it moving."
So typically, usually what happens is, yes, you request via email. So it's documentation that can't be deleted, and someone can't state that they didn't receive it. You would send an email to her or him stating that you want them, you're requesting for them to remove themselves on behalf of, mishandling of your case and excuse me, I'm sorry, misrepresentation. Um, and you would have another court date. Typically, usually that's how it happens. You would have another court date where this lawyer was supposed to represent you, and once the judge introduces on record who had appeared in court, your lawyer at that point in time would request for the judge um, to have himself or herself step down due to your request. And typically and usually the judge obliges, and then they would, reschedule another date for you to come in, and you would have to obtain another lawyer at that time. So it's really not a hard process. And usually they have to abide by those requests, especially if you feel you're not being represented properly. Um,
Okay, I get what you're saying. Um, I I'm worried about the fact if I can't find a lawyer or pro bono services or what have you, um, like
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? You said that you're worried about not finding a lawyer, and then you just kind of went blank on me.
yeah, like if I don't find a lawyer or somebody other than legal aid to represent me, say I have to go with another court appointed lawyer, this one.
So I got the end of it. Say you have to go with another court-appointed lawyer, and then what? I'm sorry.
Sorry, I don't know what's wrong with the internet. So like if you need like I don't I meet the requirements of getting, of course, a court appointed lawyer. And like say if I'm asking this judge to be like, she doesn't want you to represent her, to get rid of that lawyer, can she assign me another lawyer that's court appointed? Like, God forbid I can't find one or afford one myself. So does that like bar me from getting representation?
No, you clearly already were. You met the financial needs, or I believe they give you a financial affidavit in the beginning in order for you to be accepted to receive a court-appointed lawyer. Originally. But usually, what happens is just because you have a discrepancy with this lawyer doesn't mean that you are not allowed to obtain another free lawyer. You have already filled out the information stating that you're in need of one. So, more than likely, what's going to happen is you will be assigned another one, and the judge will ask you in your next appearance, once this other lawyer steps down, are you going to represent yourself, or are you in need of a new lawyer? And usually, what they'll do is it's the same process. They'll give you a reference, and you go over to the bar association, and you fill out the same paperwork, and they assign you another lawyer. Um, my little input in there is like I said, you can call ahead of time before one's actually assigned to you and state, hey, listen, I just had to fire one of your lawyers because of mishandling of my case, and I would like to request if I have somebody that is fully educated in domestic violence and child abuse that is willing to properly represent me. You have that right to do that. Um, Sometimes it can take 2 to 3 lawyers, but I mean, if you are eligible for a free lawyer, you're eligible for a free lawyer. So either way, I mean, if you happen to fire 2 or 3 lawyers, they're going to wind up sending you back to the bar association unless you can find someone pro bono that's willing to take on your case that's not part of, these assigned counties. Are you there, honey? Yeah, I'm not getting anything you're saying. I'm seeing your mouth moving,
Now,
but nothing. There it goes.
does the bar association do? Would they even have like a list of lawyers besides court appointed?
So I got a few words of what you said. I think you said something about does the bar association have a list of lawyers, but then I don't know what you were.
Sorry about. So yeah, I just like I obviously don't want a court appointed lawyer because of what's going on and how they represented me, and this is my second court appointed lawyer. The first lawyer actually just took off, didn't say he was leaving from my case or anything like that. I didn't even know for months of he wasn't calling me or anything or responding back to me. So and then I found out that he removed himself from my case. I didn't get any kind of notice or anything like that. So we're on court appointed lawyer number two, and so my question is pro bono services. How should I go about research?
So honestly, the only advice that I could kind of give you is, yes, you're gonna wind up going back to the assigned counsel, which probably and more than likely you're going to wind up getting another lawyer that's being paid regardless, and that's kind of what one of our main problems are with some of us parents that have to deal with the court appointed lawyers is they're paid regardless. So honestly, deep down inside, they just don't care because they know they're going to get a check anyways. And if you're in search of a pro bono lawyer, the only thing you can do is pretty much go online and Google for certain law firms that might provide pro bono lawyers. There are some grad students that kind of do pro bono work as well. Um, of course, I would more recommend a lawyer that is a little bit more experienced, of course. And it can be a little difficult, and it can be, very time consuming. But unfortunately, like I said before, we do have to put the work in to get some type of satisfaction out of our case. So you are going to have to do some research and find out who is best fit for your case itself, um, along with looking up to see who might be best educated in the specific areas that you're looking for. So again, that's the only advice that I can really kind of give you offhand, off the top.
Thank you. You know, I appreciate that, and give me that advice and everything like that. Um, Another question I do have is the foster care parents. Now, when this case started, now I'm looking in the notes yesterday. The case started. The foster care person, well, it was actually only a parent. These. Let me backtrack. The two people that have my daughter right now are married. Legally married. I looked it up, everything, and they are not both listed as the foster care parents, and I think that's an issue because like I never hear about the foster mother, and why is this single man? I mean, more power to single parents that raise foster children. I'm not saying that he's a little out there. He, I think my daughter is being emotionally abused right now, and I just, besides having on instinct, stuff I see on Facebook and Instagram and everything like that, how he raises his other daughter is not really that great. Any mother wouldn't probably even let them be friends with that type of parent if your kid's going to school. I it's just that's just me. But force a parent and giving my daughter to her husband or her ex-husband,
So again, I'm sorry, I'm just getting bits and pieces of what you're saying. You said that there's two parents that are the foster parents, and something about the husband. I kind of heard little bits and pieces of the discrepancies that you have, I guess, with his parenting skills. But I'm just kind of trying to figure out what your question is and the point.
sorry, hello. Okay, wait. I don't know why this is doing this. Sorry
You're
about that.
fine if you want to actually
Okay.
message me on Messenger to
So
ask the
it's not
question.
only
I can.
about his parenting skills and whatnot. It's
Jackie, why don't
I
you
think I think I got it. Hold on. So it's not about his parenting skills,
no,
really,
you're still cutting out on me. Why don't
solely
you
about
message me
that. It's the fact that the
and then I can
parent,
answer on
he's
the
not registered
podcast.
as a foster parent, and he's only taking care of my daughter, and she's
Okay, I got you.
hold
So you're
on, hold
saying
on one
that he
second.
is not registered. You're saying he's not registered as a foster parent, but he's taking care of your daughter. Um, but they
All right,
are
just give me one
legally
second.
married. I believe that's what you're asking. But I'll wait for you to message me so I can get it out correctly.
Yes, and she's
Sorry, guys, just bear with us. We're just trying to help her get her story out, and there's just a little lagging going on with the internet connection. Okay, so it says, who do I complain to if they are separated and he has my daughter and without a foster license? They are lying saying that they're together. Whoa. Um, he has emotional he's emotionally abusive. I don't really know right offhand who you can complain to. I would suggest maybe speaking to I don't know. I can't remember if you said that you're in New York State. There has to be
the
some
case
type
is in
of
New York State.
entity. Okay, so there has to be some New York State. I think even in Albany, they have a building or an association basically for foster parents. I would try to Google that information and just see who might be superior in this situation, who's in charge of hiring or figuring out where these foster licenses come from or investigating these people for foster license. That's the best advice I can give to you. We've shared this with a lot of groups, and maybe somebody can answer that question for you. Again, I don't have answers to everything. I'm sorry, but all I can advise you is probably to look up online to see, especially in Albany, New York, because typically Albany is in charge with most of the facilities here in New York. But I would look up something in reference to that to see who. There's always somebody superior over the next person. Also, some of the groups that you're in, you might be able to post that question as well, because there's a lot of people that are pretty informed, not only with the logistics behind everything, but they might even have the proper resources to steer you in the right direction.
Okay. I'll look into all that. I do appreciate, you give me the best advice that you can. Um, but yeah, as far as the case, we're pretty much at a standstill right now. I have my own place, own income. Mind you, I came from being homeless and just without a purpose. And, anybody, if I can do it, any of you guys can do it. Find the strength and just be ruthless, professional. Like I always say, professional but ruthless. Um, I have my own place. I'm stable. I completed my services 3 times. And what else? I have stable income, everything. And whatnot, because they love going to church. I'm pretty much trying to stay active in the community. Like, so there should be no reason for her not to come here. And that's where we're at right now, besides my grandmother trying to be a backup for my daughter to get here. Just in case we do, parent or a resource for my daughter to come home or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, the and don't give up, and to always document. That's the only thing that I realized in the beginning. That even though I was, even though I was emotionally distressed in the beginning, and you can understand why, everybody.
I'm so sorry, my little one keeps talking in the camera. I think you've
I think
given
there's a
everybody
lag.
some food. Yeah, there's a big lag. I'm sorry. There's a lot to think about here too, and I think your strength that you've continued to. Sorry, guys. Your strength that you've continued to push on and continue your fight all through everything that you've gone through. That alone speaks for itself. And I tell a lot of parents many times, many times, is that our past, of course, is not what makes us. And although we have had some issues with whatever, your issue and your fight was with drugs. Someone else's could have been, who knows, emotional problems, uh, having to seek medication for whatever they might need, or dropping out of school, or maybe quitting a job, or there's so many other issues out there in the world that everybody else might be able to handle under their circumstances, but somebody else might not be able to. So I do give you a lot of respect for owning your mishaps, and there's nothing wrong with that. Again, because your past is not what's defining you right now. You're doing everything that you need to do to regain a relationship with your daughter, along with getting her back, and being the mother that you need to be. And I see, as long as you're doing and staying fit with these programs, there shouldn't be any reason why you shouldn't have a successful relationship with your daughter, and hopefully grow from this situation and just become closer together. And the bond and the testimony alone is so powerful. And that's one thing that us parents need to keep remembering is that our testimony is key because your situation, amongst many others, it's always different. Even though we have, one main problem, which is the fight against family court and CPS corruption. Each and every one of our stories is so different in so many different ways and so many different aspects of our lives. But we have the power to change that, and we have the power to bring people together and stand up for what's right. Um, so I do want to thank you again, and I give you so much respect for what you have gone through, and what you're still going through. And you're gonna make it. You got that lion roaring in you, and you can see it, and it's coming out, and you're gonna be unstoppable. So you got me tearing up right now. I feel so bad. Um, so I give you a lot of
Oh, thank
respect.
you.
You're amazing. You're amazing. I mean, I know a lot of us go through a lot of things, but I think it's a
Yeah,
lot
you're
harder when you
amazing
do
too.
come from the bottom up. When you come from the bottom up and you have to start all over again, and some people don't really fully understand because they look down on people that, have tapped into drugs or have been addicts, and they're not fully understanding what might have caused that person to sink into that or, rehash back into those, addictive feelings. But for you to pull yourself out of it and just say, hey, you know what? Yeah, this was me. This is what I did. Now I'm doing the best that I can to get my daughter. And you've tried for so many years. I just definitely applaud you for that. And I really truly believe that if you continue telling your story, because I'm not the only platform out there, of course, there's many other places that you can send your story through. I truly believe that you can be an inspiration to help so many other people in that specific area as far as addiction is concerned, because there are many people out there that are scared to open up because they're worried about people judging them. And they have to understand that we aren't God. We're people, and every one of us has a problem and a fault and a sin
Exactly.
and whatever you want to call it. So people need to understand that each and every one of us are hurt inside for whatever reason, and just some of us take it out in different forms and fashions. And if we could just lean on each other, especially now more than ever with what's going on in the world, um, we'll win. We'll conquer numbers, and I believe in faith in God, and I believe that God is going to come and help all of us that have been wrongfully attacked, especially our children, because they are trying to attack the mere fact of family setting. And that's something that we need to stand strong with, because it is 2021 and there are so many different subjects out there that are causing division amongst our families and children. But we as parents, of course, have to stand strong for our kids because nobody else is going to do it for us. So, before I close, I was just wondering, is there anything else that you wanted to say?
Um, I appreciate, what you just said to me. That was, that just gave me more strength to keep going forward. And, this is for all parents out there. Don't give up. And your children love you no matter what. You need, just you have to stick together with your family. You know, don't always, judge yourself and get down on yourself, because they already knocked you down to the lowest of the low. And you need to say, what, if you are innocent, which is a lot of families, the parents and everything out there, you're innocent, you're innocent. And no one can take that from you. And always document that, because in the end, look at this. 4 years later, my grandma writes down everything to like how people were reacting in court and this and that. So there you go. That's my proof right there. So it's all gonna catch up, guys. You know what? If whatever And I
I'm
also
going.
want to thank you for having me on your show. So thank you.
Oh, you're awesome. Thank you so much for being a guest on our show as well. I just want to remind everybody that there is a petition online at care2.com for reforming family court and CPS, specifically designed to protect domestic violence and child abuse victims. We see too often in court that we are treated as criminals and we are pushed aside as if our voice doesn't matter. Hashtag we are their voice. So please go online, sign it, share it, pass it on to as many people as possible. We need to make a change and we have to start somewhere. If you don't stand up for something, you stand up for nothing. So do something right. Thank you. God bless. Love everybody. And hopefully I'll see everybody next week. Have a good night.
Thank you guys. Stay strong. Bye.